Good morning, North America. Welcome to Church Talk TV. Lively talk about life, church, and church life. I'm your co-host, Dr. Bill Tenney-Britton, and I'm joined, as usual, by my co-host, Dr. Kris Tenney-Britton, and we're broadcasting from our studio in Columbia, Missouri, the heartland of America. Say good morning, Kris.
Well, good morning, and welcome to Church Talk TV.
Kris and Bill Tenney-Britton here today, and today we're talking about how to de-haunt your church. Okay, not really.
De-haunt your church.
We're talking about how to stop your visitors, your first-time visitors, from ghosting you.
Now, go ahead.
Go on.
No, I'm going to jump in here because the first time I heard about ghosting was with dating and whatnot. I had no idea what that meant, and so now possibly you don't either. So ghosting,
I'll bet you do.
Ghosting means they disappear. You know, I don't understand ghosting. I think about ghosting. I think about people like ghosts staying around. But anyways, it does mean that they've left.
They're wearing white costumes with big eyes.
Yeah, it's Halloween.
Right.
No. So they come, they go, you never see them again. Would that be accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay, that's what we're talking about today.
And the reality is, in the United States, probably Canada's pretty close to this as well, but in the U.S. for sure, because the study was done in the U.S., that approximately nationwide, only 15% of first-time visitors return to a church a second time. 15%. Now, there's other news to go with that. That's of the church across the United States. Now, if you take that and you divide it up and say, how about the mainline church, the United Methodists, the Presbyterians, the Lutherans, Episcopalians, etc.? What about them? It drops to 11%. And from a study that the Effective Church Group did, that if the church is in decline or on a plateau, that number is a paltry 6%. That means 94% of every first-time visitor, more than 9 out of 10, if they visit your church, they're going, yeah, no, we're gone, we're done, we're
ghosted.
Not coming back, you're ghosted.
Okay, so
exactly.
Here's what you just tossed out a lot of statistics, right?
Of course, yes.
So,
yeah.
right, lots of numbers. You
That's
may be,
what I do.
that's statistics. So here's my question to you. How many visitors have you had in the last 3 months? Let's see, wait a minute. Is that post-Easter? Easter was what? April, May, June, July. Yeah. In the last 3 months, how many visitors have you had? And how many of them have returned?
Those are two critical, important numbers. You should be tracking on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah.
How many first-time visitors? And really, when I talk about looking at this, it's not individual visitors, because you can have one family come and have 5 visitors. Woohoo! I track households if I can.
Yeah.
You can't always tell.
Right.
But I try to track households. How many first-time households visited your church this month, last month, and the month before? I like it. And I always do annual numbers as well.
Oh, yeah, you have to.
And then how many first-time visitors return? And that one needs to be done over an annual, because they don't always come back the very next week. Sometimes they come back 2 or 3 weeks later or whatever. And here's how you can really tell is, what is your membership count minus those who have died or left? But, is it going up because your visitors are coming, returning, and becoming a member of your church? Or not so much? Critical numbers to know, because if you don't know those numbers, you don't know how you're succeeding or where you need to do some work, which is, of course, we're going to talk about
up,
that.
right? I mean, that we're not saying, oh, you're a failure, or oh, this is horrible. We're just saying, please beef it up, right? This is too important to lose it.
It is horrible if it's down, but that's horrible because we want the church to succeed.
Right.
We want your church to be growing, reaching people, making disciples of Jesus Christ, doing more baptisms.
Effective, sustainable, and faithful.
Right.
Yeah, you always add faithful.
Yeah,
That's good.
Faithful
All
to
right.
the Great Commission, and the Great Commandments.
Right.
So there we are.
Okay, so we don't want to rest. You've got the statistics. You know what your church is doing, or you can. Right. Well, I mean, it's probably not too difficult to figure it out, unless you're in a church of probably over 100, 150. I mean, I think then if you're not tracking numbers, it may be a little more difficult. But we had a pastor just yesterday who said, well, we had this many visitors and how many came back? Well, maybe about that. And then it was like, well, if I know that, not enough. right? I mean, there's a problem. Okay, so we want to give you some ideas that to turn that around for you
to stop your visitors from ghosting you. Getting them to come back.
Right.
So we have three primary things we want to talk about. Okay, and number one is, do you know what the number one reason why first-time visitors do not return? Bad hospitality.
Yeah.
A hospitality faux pas that just, someone says, true story, that someone said that a visitor came, it was a small town, the greeter knew the visitor and said, "What are you doing here?" Yeah, I'd come back there. Woo! Yeah. I don't think so.
No, before you say, "Hey, we got great hospitality. We have great cookies. There's always coffee. Blah blah blah." That's my latest word of the week. Blah blah blah. Anyways, and it's not just about that greeting or that having yummies and whatnot. Those are important, but. Do you have coffee? Do you have tea? Can you drink in the sanctuary? Is that okay? It doesn't pay to have a coffee bar or tea if you can't take your cup and drink. That's hospitality. Bathrooms. That's about hospitality. Go ahead.
Number one conversation piece by visitors. We did a significant study. The Net Results magazine that we managed did a significant study on this. The number one conversation piece when a first-time visitor, couple or family visit, when they get out to their car, the top topic is not your sermon. They don't talk about if they've used the restroom, the top topic is, did you see their bathrooms? Or, wow, did you see their bathrooms?
Right, but standard bathrooms, they won't say anything, but you can either wow them. I've not had that experience at all. You can either wow them or discuss them. And I just don't see it. But let me say this too.
We did the study.
Oh, well.
We did a real study.
Never mind. Never mind. Okay, moving right along. Yes, this is lively.
Lively conversation.
Lively conversation. Okay, anyways, that shows you what I know about what we do.
So it's a pre-COVID study, but my guess is the numbers haven't changed.
Yeah, probably not. We're not totally lost track.
Okay, hospitality.
Oh, yeah, now I remember.
Right, okay, all right.
Okay, so we do a lot of secret shopping. We enjoy secret shopping, and hospitality is a huge part of that. And I may have said this before. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but I preached recently at a church, and it was a rather large church. They should have had greeters, and maybe they had them out at one entrance, but I came in an entrance that was marked as an entrance, came in, and nobody was there. Nobody looks at me. I go to the audio booth, because that's the AV booth is right there. And I said, hey, they didn't even tell me my contact. So I'm looking, and they said, well, I don't know. And I said, okay. And it wasn't even really that friendly. So I saw a guy go by.
This is the guest preacher.
I'm the guest preacher. And then a guy goes by, and he's got like a notebook under his hand. And I'm thinking, that's the person, or he'll know where I can go. So he's up there, and he's up there talking to this woman up near the front.
Yeah.
And he's talking to this woman, and I go up there, and they see me, and I'm standing there, and they don't say anything to me whatsoever. And I finally, after about a minute, said, excuse me. And he goes, I don't know. Didn't offer to help me find that person or anything else. That's hospitality.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah. And then here's another one I want to toss out there. Another one, this has been a couple years ago probably. And again, yummy yummies. They made sure, knowing who we were, made sure that, we don't sit together when we're doing secret shopping. And so anyways,
we don't even come in together. We
different doors.
Different doors, the whole thing.
Whoever's shopping goes around the block and then, comes back separately. Anyways, so I was in there. They were really friendly, but there was a woman sitting all by herself, a young woman sitting all by herself up in a chair against the wall. And I can't stand to see people standing by themselves or sitting by themselves in a church. I'm always thinking, what kind of message are we giving to them? And so I went and I asked her, and she was a guest. Actually, she was a returning guest. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why she was coming back. It's because we were talking about this last night. She had stuff going on in her life, and she was looking for something. She must have been pretty desperate to go back there. And she just sat there. Nobody even acknowledged her.
Yep.
Yeah.
And to be fair, she got someone and connected them.
I did. I got her name and went and introduced somebody to her.
All right, so here's the key. hospitality it encompasses everything from the sermon topic to the music you pick to the bulletin, the words, the vocabulary in the bulletin. Does it say narthex in it? No one knows what a narthex is. It's a lobby. Lose the narthex word. Anyway, that's just one of my bugaboos.
That is.
No one talks about narthex outside the church. But in any event, everything from greeters to ushers to hosts to coffee to restrooms to worship buddies, you name it, all of that is key. And if you have great hospitality, then you may or may not get the visitor back, but you won't, if you have good hospitality, you won't at least have run the visitor off.
Yeah.
It doesn't guarantee they'll come back. Good hospitality isn't the primary reason they return, but it is the number one reason why they choose not to return. So, number one is roll out the red carpet. Make sure your guests are welcome. You don't embarrass them, confuse them. You don't overwhelm them. You don't ignore them. Those are the platinum rules. And then you have a shot for number two.
Wait! I have to say these last two things. Hospitality actually starts when you drive onto the parking lot, and if you don't have a parking lot, at least be out there greeting. Even up on the corner would be working, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and here's my other thought. So if we're ghosting them and we're running them off, does that mean we've done a guest exorcism?
Oh.
Okay, so our second...
Moving right along. Number two, the second thing you can do to help make sure that you're not ghosted by your visitors is, and Lifeway, Tom Rainer and his group did a study fairly recently that said that the number one reason visitors do return is because of biblical relevant preaching. The sermon had something to do with their real life. They were able to relate to it. They were able to understand it. They were able to track with it. And it was valuable enough that says, wow, I need to hear more. That inspired me. And inspired me in a way in which my life is impacted in some way. So the number two is to make sure that your sermon, and in fact your whole service, is as relevant to your target audience, to your hopeful guests, as you can possibly be. Now, that doesn't mean preaching something that is alienating your congregation, because every major issue that someone from the outside in community has, there are people in your congregation have those same issues. People are wrestling with their marriage, with finances, with children, with jobs, with promotions.
Questions.
Questions they're wrestling with. They all have that. So, just because you're targeting a topic on something that you think your visitors or hope that your visitors are wrestling with, doesn't mean you're neglecting your congregation. And notice the key word there was biblical relevant.
Thank you.
Okay, it's not just a topical pop psychology thing.
Right.
The Bible has the answers. Jesus has the answers. It's there. You may just have to do some extra work to find it.
Yeah, well, a lot of our preaching comes from, we sit down, we've got scripture, we've got other people's ideas about how we can apply that, right? We've done all our background, and now we're going to be, okay, what's my message out of this? What's the message? Rather than having conversation with your people, that means you got to be out of your office and talking to a wide variety of people. And what am I listening? If you're in a larger town or a city with a mall, go sit in the mall, in the cafe, in the what's it called, food court, and listen to the
over
conversations.
Here.
Listen to what's going on. Those are the kind of relevant messages that you'd be giving. Now, I have to pop in here with this one.
Okay,
and that is, we keep talking, yeah, we are, probably, but maybe not. We talk about avatars, having targets, who is it you're trying to reach? That's, a whole other topic, except that when you're reaching, how to keep from ghosting them, is that everything
ghosted.
being oh yeah.
We're not ghosting them. They're
ghosting
they
us.
come to church. The church is totally empty because you've decided to do a work day on Sunday, and they showed up and the church is gone. Oh, wait a minute, not good hospitality. Sorry, that little just a rabbit trail and another one of my bugaboos.
Mine too. Okay, but we're not going there right now, right?
They're ghosting us.
if you have a target, the kind of people that you're trying to reach, if you have now geared everything around your target, right? Then you're going to be reaching your people. If your message, even your building, if you're trying to reach young families, you want to have nursery, a good, great nursery in place.
Nursery near the sanctuary, not in another building or on another level.
Okay, so that's hospitality, and I don't really want to go
there.
Right.
But you've been talking about the building.
But I do want to say to you that if you know your target, and that is so dad blasted key. We go out, we might be listening, we're talking to people, maybe we're trying to write relevant sermons and whatnot. But if everything, the music, blah blah blah, is all there around your target, you're going to hit your target, and your target's going to come back.
There's the key, and there's the real key. We had a conversation just yesterday with a pastor who we were talking about this very topic, talking about targeting and your avatar. And he said, we're so small, our target audience is anyone who's breathing. Well, that's great. Now, let me just parse that out for you. That right now, they're a very small congregation, and they're doing very traditional worship. So who are they targeting? They're targeting people who love classical worship, who love classical hymnology, who love a classical liturgy, and who are probably enjoying an expository kind of sermon. All of those are wonderful things. Now, here comes Bob and Barbara. Bob and Barbara have 2 children. They are in their young 30s. Their marriage and family is really struggling, and they decide they've got to go to church. Now, they've only been to church once or twice their whole lives. It was their grandmother's church. They don't remember much about it. They know that that there was some God stuff there, and they're really hoping that God will. So they show up at this person's church, and the music is foreign, the language is foreign, the sermon is not relevant to them and their issues. And I don't remember the other thing, but I mean, it's like, no matter how friendly your folks are, no matter how good your hospitality, they're not coming back, because they're looking for answers in their lives. They're looking for inspiration. They're looking for someone who's talking in a language they can understand, and they'll go find some other church, because you're targeting well-churched. Oh no, we're targeting everyone. No, everyone's welcome.
Right.
I agree with that, and your hospitality says that.
Right.
But that's the difference between welcome and targeting.
Right.
The targeting says we are going to line up our shots, if you will, parts of the worship that so they can resonate, so they hear it, so they can hear the gospel, and they can hear hope. But they're not going to hear hope in a sermon they don't understand, using language they don't understand, you get it. You get it.
Yeah, well, okay, I know I'm veering now, down the rabbit hole, but I want to add this about worship, that Carol McCauley, just an incredible minister, taught me this. She was my music minister in Bellevue Christian Church. This is what she said about worship. When your opening song needs to be one about God, right? Because not only everybody's ready to dedicate their life or anything, and not everybody knows about God.
I love you, Jesus, and I'm going to follow you forever.
Right, and not everybody knows about God. So what we're going to do is proclaim like His goodness. We're going to sing about His, His greatness. Then the next song, and if we're doing sets, you're going to build into this. That's where we start to say, that's where we turn to the I language. So you're talking about you, but then now you're saying like I.
We move from corporate to personal.
And then at the end we move to commitment. And so that commitment is like, I don't know, onward Christian soldiers, that kind of,
Which is missing
isn't
from a lot of hymns.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'm doing it is that, we're going out, here's my commitment.
Whatever.
I'm going out. I've made this commitment. So you've got this whole totality. So be thinking about that. Now, what we pick on churches a lot about, having families and children and whatnot, and having a children target. Your target may be older adults. Your target may be people that are churched, traditionally churched, but you live in a transient type of community, right? Like near a military base. That's one of those.
Empty nesters. We know of a church that's their target. Their target is empty nesters. That's who they say. There's no illegitimate targets.
Right. It's your target.
Right.
Not our target.
And if you're targeting people who have church experience, maybe the Duns, that's awesome. Just know that that's the target,
right? And
spend your time trying to connect with those people. That's all we're saying. We're not saying one target's better than another. We're just saying. So Having said all that, now what was I going to say? I wanted to say something about the targeting and about the. Oh well, we'll come back to it, or I'll remember, or I won't, as the case.
Because we have our third
point.
Oh,
I know what it was. No. On the last piece
okay,
about that, because we talked about music.
Right.
I want to say this: that music is a hot topic button, and that when we talk to a church and say, you need to change your music, all hell breaks loose sometimes. To be fair. The reality is one of the things that Tom Rainer in the Lifeway said is that music is a lower priority for people.
Yeah.
That people will tolerate even if they never heard the music at all. So Bob and Barbara and family show up, and they don't get the music, but the rest of everything else is targeted at. They hear a sermon, a message that is, possibly life transforming. Maybe they came to your church because they saw on your sign it said, marriage matters, how to bulletproof your marriage or how to repair broken relationships. So they show up because of that. They'll tolerate. They may even come to enjoy eventually that worship style. But what they're there for is to have their problems solved. And everyone has problems they're dying to have solved. And in our case, Bob and Barbara and family, they want to put their family back together. And if you're offering something from the pulpit that is walking them through a biblically solid, this is how to have a great relationship with your family and so on, they are likely to come back because you're helping them. So when we talk about targeting everything, to begin with, if you'll just tweak that sermon to target on a regular basis your target audience and the issues they're facing or the questions they're having, there's a pretty good chance they won't ghost you.
Yeah, true.
Okay.
I was just thinking a conversation I had with a pastor this morning about, how do you help people to know that Jesus is there? And I said, well, what kind of starts do you believe it? Right? I mean, and not that he doesn't, but, do you believe it? And is this a truth for you? And how are you going to make that real? And that, the conversation started with how people turn to other things other than God, right? And so we have a lot of people that are just trying to escape. They're into escapism. And one of my soapboxes right now are the ads everywhere in Columbia, Missouri, for the marijuana stores.
Recreational marijuana stores.
Yeah, Shangri-La is one of them. You can get high and everything is great. So that's an escapism. But then the other part of that is, how can my life be better? And so how can we do that? Like, through the diet drugs, Ozempic, through this, if I buy the right car, I can look like Matthew McConaughey and afford that car too. And, so we're there. And I said, okay, but really we live in a fallen world and we know none of that is going to work. So let's go back biblically and say what can work and give them a bigger hope. So you're going to give them coping mechanisms. Like, let me talk to you about how you can cope. But now here's where Jesus. Oh, I love that.
Well, you said it. I just put the.
There's an article in there. Okay, watch out.
Right,
okay, so anyways, we got to hit this next one. Yeah.
So we talked about hospitality.
Right.
Now that won't bring the visitors back, but it'll at least perhaps stop them from ghosting you if you have good hospitality.
Yeah.
Number 2 is relevance, and especially relevant sermon, but relevance overall. And I want to say one thing, just add one thing to that, and that is when they show up, they're also looking for a relationship.
Yeah.
They're looking not just for a friendly church. No one woke up on Sunday and said, if I could just find a friendly church, I'd go to church. No one on this planet said that. But when they show up, they're looking for someone who cares and cares enough to maybe have a conversation with them on Thursday afternoon. Pick up the phone and say, hey, you want to do coffee? And so they're looking for a friend. They're looking for a relation. They're looking for a connection with someone who's beyond them spiritually, who can, maybe care enough to be with them, hear them, and offer hope.
Which brings us to our last point.
There we are.
Which is follow up. Oh my gosh. I thought, when you teach on something for a long time, you just figure that everybody's got it. And then there it was, talking with a pastor last week. And I said, so how did you follow up with that visitor? And there was this silence. And it was, this minister is not watching, so it's not you. But maybe it is. No, but how often could you go back? Let's just talk about what we used to do 30 years ago. Like take a loaf of bread or, or do whatever.
Which is not a great, but it's better than nothing.
It's better than nothing. And then we talked about the possibilities. She doesn't have the support yet to do a ministry exactly like pastor. That. Okay, yeah, gotcha. This pastor, right? Okay, right. Sorry. So how are you following up? At the very least, send them a letter. Get there that afternoon.
Not the mimeographed, the mail merged. We don't use that anymore. Don't use the form letter, okay?
Right.
And it needs to be handwritten. But handwritten, a card. Just a handwritten card saying how. But let me just real quick. We do lots of training on this. We have workbooks on this. We have whole products, big products that we sell on this. But here's the real key for you, okay? Is that your follow-up needs a process. And the process, we know that process, if to be most effective, needs to take place within a few hours after worship. Pastor, your job after worship is number one, taking a guest to lunch. That's your number one thing. Number two is then following up with a visitor and dropping off a gift. And again, you don't go in, you just drop it off with information from the church. Say, hey, so glad to have you here, da-da-da-da. Monday, you send a handwritten note. Tuesday, they get added to the they're actually added on Monday to the newsletter list. And Tuesday, it's emailed out, assuming you're doing an email newsletter. Wednesday, they get a break. Thursday, they get a lengthy email that introduces the church and the staff and blah, blah, blah. And Friday or Saturday is a text that invites them to come back to whatever the sermon topic is tomorrow. Wow, that sounds like you're stalking them. It sounds like you're stalking when you put it all in one sentence.
Yeah.
When you talk about over the space of a week, it just sounds like you'd like to have them come back, and you hope that they really had an awesome time and they were inspired and there's something that they want to come back to or can come back to.
Right. Okay, now, Pastor, you're not the one that does all of that.
No.
Right? You got to put together a team, get at least 2 or 3 other people, because people keep seeing you and seeing, your stuff. It's going to get kind of old. So that's that connection, wanting to connect. It also means just block out Sunday afternoon. You don't go and just, count on Sunday morning. You need to block out some time Sunday afternoon
Sunday's a work day.
Follow up. Yeah, exactly. And here's something else. I have heard almost every single excuse on the planet about why you can't do follow-up on Sunday afternoons. So I'll say this part first. For a long time, we were taught that the pastor can't be the one who does the initial follow-up. Initially, when I was trained in evangelism and follow-up, a lay person was the one who, the pastor was the one who did the follow-up. And then it shifted for years. So if you've been doing ministry for 30 years or so, you may be thinking, or even 20 years, no, it's not the pastor. Well, that swapped, maybe 10 years ago or so?
Longer than that, but it's been a while.
Wow. That doesn't hold.
People want to see the CEO. They want to see the pastor. They want to see the head guy or gal in charge.
Right.
And when they do, they're honored, they're surprised, and because it almost never happens. So they're honored, they're surprised, and they feel like they made a connection with the guy or the gal up front. And that's huge.
Right. Okay, so don't do that if you don't have the rest in place. I'm sorry, if you don't have the package in place, because then what happens is they connect just to the pastor and the church isn't ready to do that. And again, I have heard every excuse in the book, and I can tell you how to get around them. I've done it as a pastor myself. I've coached pastors into that. So if you will tell me your excuse, right, contact us or just, add on here. I will get you around that. Or who knows, maybe you'll surprise me and give me a new one to work on. But no excuses.
All right, so there's 3 things, the 3 ways or tools, if you will, to help stop the ghosting by visitors. Great hospitality, relevant sermon that solves a problem. Every Sunday solves a problem, folks. They just start saying that. Write that down somewhere. Go ahead.
And you want them to leave feeling better than when they came in.
Yes.
Sorry, a lot of us think, well, we need to make them go out thinking, well, yeah, but they need to feel good. So how are you
They
going to
have
make
hope.
them feel
They
better?
need-
Hope.
hope,
How
yeah.
are they going to leave there and feel better when they leave?
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. And then third is and of course the sub point of there, which we rabbit trailed, was that everything needs to be relevant as best we can.
Right, targeted
and
relevance.
Right, and then last, follow up. Now listen, if you'll do that, if you'll do those three things, I can tell you what your statistics will shift to, because we have 2 churches that have put into place exactly what we said to do, and both those churches are getting over an 85% return rate, and one of those churches, 75% of every first-time visitor that returns, over 85% of them, join the church. Folks, it's possible. Is it work? Yes, it's work. Is it going to push your comfort zone? Absolutely. But here's the deal. If you'll do the work, you'll grow your church. Hey, we are out of time.
We are so out of time. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.